Hello everybody, welcome back to Room Temp Beer. Today's a very special video, one I've had bumping around in my head for quite a bit of time, and one that I'm glad I finally get to make and share with you all. So, I mean, if it's not incredibly obvious, I'm a big comic book fan slash reader. I love the old stuff. Obviously I haven't read everything, but I like to think that I know quite a bit about comics, especially DC Comics. I do enjoy the Marvel stuff, I'm just unfortunately not as up to date with it, but I digress. If you follow comics at all, then you're familiar with the incredibly successful launch of the Absolute series, and essentially an alternate universe take on, very popular DC characters with slightly different twists and variations to their character and to their rogues galleries, their sidekicks, their allies, etc. Part of what makes these stories so great is, for one, like the twist and different interpretation on these characters. And the other thing is that the art across the board has been fantastic. I just picked up my copy of the Absolute Martian Manhunter trade paperback at my local comic store, and I've been having a blast with it, and the art is genuinely some of the coolest and most mind-bending I've ever seen. Now, this is the same for the rest of the books as well. I think Absolute Superman, Flash, Batman, and Wonder Woman all have incredible art, but only one of them has incredible paneling, I would also say, and that would be Absolute Wonder Woman. Now, the panelist and artist for the series is Hayden Sherman, and I love the way that they utilize their paneling not only to accentuate a scene, but also to keep a scene grounded, and also just to get across character nuance, and it's also just cool. I don't think I've ever seen an artist in a mainstream comic book use paneling the way that Hayden Sherman does. And essentially this video is, if the title wasn't obvious, we're going to be analyzing the paneling in Absolute Wonder Woman based on certain screenshots that I've taken from my digital copies of the book, and we're just going to be going through it and discussing how I think the paneling affects the storytelling, how it informs the action, like the literal fighting and whatnot, and just gush about it a little bit, because I do think that it's some of the most impressive, versatile paneling in the industry right now. I have read some of Hayden Sherman's other stuff, mostly their work in Night Terrors from, I think it was 2019 or 2021, I'm forgetting the exact date. I know they've worked on Batman Dark Patterns, which I am very much looking forward to buying once it's in a hardcover format. I think it's 12 issues or something like that. But for now, let's just get into why I love this book and why I love Hayden Sherman's work so much. So I'm just going to put up a bunch of panels on screen that I personally felt, connected to, and what I found fun and interesting about them. And I'm just going to explain my thoughts on them and how I think they helped the book, really elevate it to a different level than what we've seen before. So let's get started. Oh, and I just want to clear something up. I've only read up to, when this video comes out, I've only read up to around issue 12. So the panels will only reflect chosen moments up until issue 12, but I haven't read past that just yet. I know 13 and 14 have come out, but I've been super busy and I just wanted to make this video. And I know that if I read 13 and 14, I'd have more panels to add, and I'm already talking about way too much. So let's just get straight into it. This is one of the first panels we get in Absolute Wonder Woman, and one thing you'll notice immediately is Hayden Sherman's circular arcing panels. And something you've probably noticed if you read any comic books is that most panels are rectangular or squares. Very rarely are they any other shapes, and you can do a lot with rectangles and squares, as I've come to learn. But the way Hayden Sherman utilizes arcing circular paneling is very, very impressive, and gives a lot of scenes a feeling of fluidity and movement that you just don't get with your regular square panels. So as we can see here, the panel in the top left, it arcs, and the panel in the bottom right, they both arc kind of opposite directions, and that makes a line for Diana's, but I'm gonna call it her Buster Sword, but for her Buster Sword to cleave through and kind of slice. Slicing is very rarely a straight line. It's, even if it is straight, it cuts the body into a cylinder. So this is kind of what it embodies to me. She's cutting straight through and introducing herself. She's cutting through the page, letting herself be known, and you can see the wide arc of her sword, and that's just reflected in these panels as well. And another thing Hayden Sherman loves to do is smaller panels interspersed throughout like a big, wide, scene to showcase smaller actions and emotions. So in the bottom left, you see two more arcing panels. They look kind of like, imagine like a paper flowing in the wind. They do a lot of that too. And it's to show Diana reaching in and grabbing her sword, establishing that she has like a sack of holding kind of that she can pull her weapons out of, and she cleaves through the center. And it's a great introduction, and not just to Diana, but also to how Hayden Sherman likes to panel. Now, here's another thing Hayden Sherman likes to do, and which I haven't really seen that often in comic books, is, so first of all, we have this giant being that Diana's facing off against, and to showcase that he has a menacing, imposing voice, we get a circular panel of Diana confronting him, but then the circular panel is also kind of wobbly and warbly to showcase like the sound effect that it's having, if that makes sense. Like, it's such a booming sound that even even the comic panel itself is being affected by it. And this isn't even the only time this happens. This happens more, and I'm sure other comics have done this. I'm just saying, like, I've never seen it in a mainstream comic, and also done very well. The lines that are protruding also go to show like just how imposing this guy's voice is. And so if you guys know any other comics that do something similar, let me know, because I think the effect is very cool, and I'm loving that the paneling is telling a story in and of itself. And there's more examples like this down the line, so I'll show those to you guys as well. Now, here's something that a friend of mine and I coined, and essentially for the longest time, this is a very familiar kind of comic technique. It's when you have one big photo and you have one character move in different poses to show like, movement. Usually there won't be paneling around it, so what Hayden Sherman does differently here is not only do they panel Diana in these frames here, but they also kind of change the perspective. Usually these little panels would just be regular rectangles, if even that, but here they're kind of like shifting the perspective of it, so it starts from like a square and then it turns into like a parallelogram almost, and then it's just a random polygon back to a square at the end of it to show like Diana's landing. And if you notice the perimeter of these frames, they're colored to show Diana in the danger zone. So in the white, she's running. Then there's there's a yellow one, a slightly more orange one, two reds to show, I guess the proximity, at least that's how I interpret it, the proximity of the laser beam. And then when she's out of the danger, the perimeter goes back to white. I've seen this technique used a lot in comics. On this page by Gabriel Piccolo, who does the Teen Titans books, you can see it's similar to how like Raven walks down the stairs. It's to illustrate the movement in between frames. And me and my friend, we were trying to figure out, like, is there a technique for this? Is there a name for this? I'm sure there is, but we couldn't figure one out. The closest thing we could liken it to is keyframes in the video. It's literally just, you pick a couple frames out, and then for animators, they would fill the spaces in with, more frames and more movements. But because these are the key frames, that's what we're gonna call them. So from now on, if you hear me refer to that, it's like the movement of a character, and they're like the framing of those. I'm gonna call that keyframing, even though that's probably not actually what the technique is called. This one I really enjoy, not because it's super complicated or anything like that. It's just, this is Diana's first time asserting authority in front of in man's world, in the human world, and I just like that the panel she's in is a giant W, like her chest symbol, and just how she's represented, just to show like, oh, she's here. This is she's being authoritative, like she's not taking shit from anybody. And this is who she is, and I just love that that scene was put in the W panel, and even all the text bubbles are in that W panel as well. I really enjoyed that. Now this one, I always get chills when I look at this one, but essentially it's like ancient Greek pottery, and the Greeks used to use it to tell stories and illustrate legends and myths, and Hayden Sherman is using it to illustrate the legend of the tetracide. And it's just so cool, because it's Diana explaining how the tetracide works and what it does, but the paneling is literally on a Greek pot, and I just think that's such a fucking cool idea. I've never seen that before. It's so cool. I have seen fan art of like, Wonder Woman fan art of her on like Greek pots like this before, but to use the sections of it as panels in a comic book, like, oh, it's just so smart and cool, and I love it. And Oh man, yeah, no, I saw this and first time I was reading this in the library with my friends, and chills just went down my spine when I had the book in my hands, and I was like, I need to find a screenshot of this later online, or just buy the book online, which is what I ended up doing, and then just take a screenshot of it, because god damn, it's cool. Nothing too crazy going on here. Mostly I just like I said, Hayden Sherman does this thing where they will often use like a big image, and then zoom in on a small part of it, just so that you can get the scale and the scope of the image, but then still get the small moments in between anyways, and not have to sacrifice one for the other. So here, again, they're using a very different shape. Still, it's a square. It's a four-pointed shape, but it's a parallelogram instead, and that's just neat. They could have easily made it like a square or a rectangle and done this and accomplished the same effect, but I just like that it's a parallelogram. It's kind of unique. But yeah, you get to see like, oh, there's this big and crazy thing going on, but then you also get the little side image of Diana struggling and sending a quick prayer to Nike. And I just think like the way that they meld the big vastness of the scene with also Diana's small prayer to Nike, I think that's just like neat, and this is a cool way of doing it. Now, this is one of my favorite combat pages in the first couple of issues. You see again, they're using circular paneling to illustrate the arc of Diana's weapon, similar to how they did in the first image that I showed you guys. Diana's got a big axe here, she's slicing, and with each slice the panel kind of follows the arc of motion, and I just find that so interesting and neat, especially because you don't see it often. So it really helps to, it gives you a more visceral feeling as to how she's swinging the axe, the force that she's putting into it, and you see not only do you see the arc of the weapon, but the panel follows the arc of the weapon, and I think that's just really unique and cool. I don't have much to add here, just besides that the fact that I felt this was like kind of gay in like a good way, like very Yuri coded. And I like the triple panels. It's like a triptych almost at the top. One of them's, they're all kind of like, it's kind of like symmetrical, and they all kind of make a little circle at the top to make way for the bigger photo at the bottom. Kind of like what I said earlier, where you still get the small stuff, but you get the nice big scenes as well. So not much to add here, but I just thought it looked cool. This is another small scene as well, but I like what they're doing here in the sense that like a lot of the background's white, and you've only got 3 little rectangles at the top. Most of the time, something like this, there would just be 3 separate panels, and the rectangle would encompass the entire, hand and wrist. But instead, the rectangles are only occupying like, I'd say a third or maybe like a half of how much they usually would be. I also like that the orange one in the middle is orange, because it kind of highlights the fact that an important action is taking place, and weirdly enough, I kind of interpret it as a sound effect, even though usually you get sound effects in comics that would say like tick, or like it would be like to tuck or something to show that she's like wrapping the glove around her hand, but at this point, like Diana's also deaf in the city, so maybe instead of using sound effects to get it across, they're just using colors. And I think that's cool. Obviously, this is just an interpretation. I'm not sure if this is actually the intent or the purpose of their art, but that's just what comes to mind for me. And I like that they chose orange for it. It could have been yellow or red, but orange weirdly works here. This is just cool. I've got nothing to say here. It just builds on some of the stuff I was saying before, where you've got these 2 separate panels that showcase a large scale attack, but then you still have smaller panels, like the one with Diana yelling "Pegasus now!" to show what her face looks like as she does this crazy maneuver. And yeah, not much to add here, but I do like how the slant of her giant buster sword is kind of mirrored by the slant of the accompanying panel. I think that's beautiful stuff. Now, this is pretty interesting. So this is the ones in red are like present day, and the ones in green are a flashback. And if you were to get rid of the red panels and just leave the green panels and connect them all together, they kind of form like an egg shape, or like a kind of like a circular shape. And I like that there's like a design language there where it's like, oh yeah, I made them green so you can tell, but I've also made them all a similar shape so you can also tell. Instead of just having like 9 rectangles, it's 5 rectangles and 4 circular shapes, to showcase that like, oh yeah, these 5 are current day and you can tell by the red color as well, and these 4 are in the past and you can tell by the green color as well. So you've got, color theory coming into play here, but then also just shape language explaining past and present events. not much to add for this one. This is when Diana turns, not turns into Medusa, but like summons Medusa's spirit or will. I forget exactly, but I just like it here because Diana's back is clearly arched, and to showcase the arch, the panels on the left are a little arched as well in different positions. Obviously, it's not to the same extent that Diana's back is, but it's similar. So I just thought that was neat, but I don't have much to add besides that. The art is great though, as always. Here's a small cute little thing. I'm not sure how big these images will be on the page, so I'm sorry if they're a little blurry. This one's a little bit small because the screenshot I took was a bit small, but I just like how the eyes slowly get like bigger, so we have like a zoomed out shot, a zoomed in shot, and then to actually see the eye itself, the eye is given a circular panel, so it's like an eye panel almost, right? And I just think that's cool. I haven't seen that a lot either. Even it's like a slam dunk. It's like, oh, this thing's got a lot of eyes. How do we illustrate that giant circular panel and put the eye in like square in the middle, or circle in the middle, I guess. I think the only thing that could have made this cooler is if they had multiple circle panels to show the multiple eyes. I think that would have been sick, but that's just me. Still a great idea. This is very cool. So a couple things to say here. This is our introduction to Veronica Cale, who is like, if you're not familiar, she's like Wonder Woman's Lex Luthor. And a couple things here. One, the walkway in the center of the page is kind of running parallel to the triangle in the center of the page as well. They're both kind of arcing. It gives you the impression that they're pointing towards Veronica Cale, who's dead center, middle of the page, right? Now, one thing I find very interesting is one of my friends told me it's called shape language, and so we've been getting a lot of circular paneling to showcase Diana and how Diana's, you know, like a soft, like well-rounded person, and she cares about things, and you know, shape language usually dictates that, like, you know, squares that are uniform and maintained, and triangles are kind of sharp, they're kind of edgy, they're strong, but they're pointed, you know, and circles, they're soft, they're rounded, they're wholesome. Like, that's the kind of like languages that shapes have in and of themselves. And so you have so many panels that are you know, rectangles, squares, and circles. A lot of circles when it comes to Diana. And you introduce this new character who is, you know, a cold, calculating she-devil, essentially. And we immediately have triangles all over the place. And this isn't the only place it happens. Like, see here, more triangles, right? We have an inverted triangle, another triangle to show her walking into the elevator, an inverted triangle to show... So it's the same thing that Hayden Sherman does for Diana, where you have these big like expansive pages, but then smaller like panels to showcase smaller actions. And we have an inverted triangle for her to click the button, an inverted triangle for her to walk in, and then another big triangle to showcase this new lab space that she's in, and it keeps going. And see, like, immediately after that we have this this triple circle image of Diana like having her little Disney princess moment, interacting with the animals of the forest. Now, I was initially wondering why this specific formation of circles. I mean, for one, it looks cool, but I was wondering why this specific formation. So what I did as a little experiment was I showed just the circles, not this paneling, but just the circle image to like a friend of mine, and some of the things that came to her mind was like a telescope. So the way I'm interpreting it off of my friend's interpretation is like, it's kind of telescopic in the sense that, like, we're zoomed into this bird, then we zoom out to see everything, then we zoom into Diana, right? So it's kind of like a way to show like different lenses almost. Again, just an interpretation. It's just, I'm sure Hayden Sherman was just like, what crazy circular paneling can I do on this page? And then just decided to do this. Either way, it looks really cool. And, you know, it's just another example of their staggering creativity. I'm a Hayden Sherman glazer, so I don't want to hear anything about like, oh, why you dick writing. I'm dick writing because it's valid, it's validated. And look at this awesome page as well. Like, you've got Diana creating like a fortress for herself. I think it's called the Aeonia, or the I don't, it's Greek, I don't remember, but I think it's called the Aeonia or something like that. And because the Aeonia is like a circular building with arcing pillars and stuff like that, we see the creation of it here. We have all these arcing, they're all, you know, four-pointed rectangles, so to speak, but they're all arched, and they're all arcing around Diana as she builds them. and it's just really neat because some of them, you know, are correlated with each other, some of them aren't, but they're all building towards something. And thrown in there are some of Diana's, again, you know, Diana's also thrown in there. We get to see what she feels on her face, what she's saying at the same time. I think this should have been just as useful, just as impactful without those there, but Hayden Sherman insists that we see how Diana is feeling and what she's saying as she continues to build this amazing space for herself and her friends. Now, here's another example of what I was talking about earlier. You see, you kind of get those little panels that zoom in and show you what's going on amidst the big city, but this is the return of like tetracide-esque beings. Basically, the context is someone has weaponized the tetracide and made smaller beings that emit a similar sound, and so we see the panels on this page kind of wobbly and wiggle to showcase that there's a sound effect at play that's bothering them. And, you know, the really big circle has kind of, you can't even really tell that it's wobbly, but then as Diana gets closer, it gets more and more obvious that there are wobbly lines, something's getting louder, that even she's annoyed by it from her perspective, right? Now, there's nothing crazy going on here. It's just like the context is that Diana busts open a door to get to Dr. Poison, and the paneling makes it look like Diana's literally stepping through the paneling. So it's like she's stepping through the door that she just busted open, and that's just like, it's really small but really unique. So I enjoy that. Here's a really interesting thing that I enjoy. So the context is that Diana's walking through a labyrinth or a maze, and she's obviously taking a lot of turns, moving around a lot. So this kind of reminds me of like a board game or, you know, a maze where the paneling kind of reflects the path she's going down. And a friend of mine told me that the white space in between is called, it's guttering. It's called guttering. And so the way the guttering is coordinated with like these some of the like it's more obvious that some of them have corners, you know, and the fact that it's winding in a certain direction and the way the guttering is arranged to show that, it's obvious that Hayden Sherman intended for it to be like, oh, she's following a path as she's going down the labyrinth. And I initially thought that this was just a fluke, or, you know, I was just making it up, but this happened several times, and each time you get to see it happen, you're like, oh wow, that's interesting. Like, here's another example. Diana meets up with like this minotaur, and again, the guttering, this new interesting guttering style comes back, where it's clear they're taking a sort of path as they're walking through the labyrinth. This is really cool. This is a little flashback sequence with little Diana when she meets Artemis for the first time, and, you know, Artemis is represented by a lot of things, but mostly the moon, and because she's the goddess of the hunt animals, especially deer. So you can see here she takes the form of panther, but the panther itself is encompassed in deer paneling, is as close as I can call it, right? It's like, it's not circular, it's not rectangular, it's nothing. It's just a giant panel in the shape of a deer. And I think that's really cool. We also have a little baby Diana in the center, who's kind of unmoving, so you highlight her in a circle, but then the sides of the circle are removed to showcase that Artemis is moving around her at the same time. And I just think that's really neat, because it could have been very easy to just keep it a full circle, you know, like how Hayden Sherman's been doing it. They've been putting full circles around Diana, but here there's clearly intent to remove sides of the circle to showcase the fact that Artemis is literally circling Diana in this moment. At least I'm 99% sure this is Artemis. I hope I'm not wrong. But yeah, like that's what I'm getting at, is that that's why they removed the circles on the side, most likely. And I just find that really interesting and neat. And this whole page is just so weird and wacky and cool. And yeah, I don't know, I really enjoy it. More examples of what I was talking about earlier. Diana's taking someone to safety, she's running through the maze again, and the guttering comes back. Now this is very interesting. It's another cool example of just a large scale page happening, you know, kind of in a smaller sense, because you see a lot of small actions, but it's still a big bombastic page. Basically, Diana's tripping balls in this scene, and the little semicircles act as a way to get closer and then further away from what Diana's experiencing. And then, very similar to the very first page that I showed you, Diana's kind of carving a path through. She's jumping from the top all the way to the bottom, and you see that, like, it's illustrated in the page. She starts up here and she's going down and catching the dude at the bottom, and I love how she's cutting through the middle, because I don't know, it's just a very cool, it's a very cool image, and I don't know, this page is so pretty and colorful, and I love it. Obviously it's because Diana's tripping balls, but that doesn't stop the art from looking awesome. Now, this is more of what I was talking about. We have this big page with Diana, and I believe her name is Io. They're in, first of all, the perspective in the middle. They're in some mines, but the perspective in the middle with Diana walking down and then around. It's like there's a fisheye lens stored right in the center of the mine, and as they're walking, you know, we have this nice, cool little shape of an eye, kind of. But then we also get this big panel in the center, just for Io's reaction, just for her to say what, because it's an important moment. It's when Io is realizing, like, oh, there's a way out, because she hasn't known there to be a way out for as long as she's been here, at least not a way out for everyone, right? So it's an important moment for Io, and then Hayden Sherman really highlights it with a big moment in the center of the page. But then the page continues, you know. That's why it's arced in the middle, so you have an arc to show them going in and another arc on the side to show them going out. And I don't know, it's just like the design language is breathtaking and really, really effective. And here we have more of the same. So on the top right, you have them hugging, you know, it's a personal, tender moment. In the center, you have this big splash page. Well, it's not quite a splash page, but this big page to showcase them, you know, still hugging and exchanging a prayer to each other. And then the bottom left, it arcs the opposite way as the one from the top right, and it shows them breaking their hug. And again, the design language is just so unique. I feel like I'm like a broken record here, but it truly just is very interesting how Hayden Sherman is arranging all of these panels together. Got two things to say here. One, I like how there's that pink line in the center to showcase them walking through a portal. Diana has opened a portal back. It's called the Hyron, not the Aeon or whatever I called it earlier. It's the Hyron. But it showcases, you know, kind of like a portal that the characters walked through, but the portal's also used as a panel. It's used to panel two sections, one in the maze and then one in the Hyron, and that's really cool. And then at this point there is a, I believe it's a siren that's in the Hyron, and she's screaming because she's upset, and we see the return of those wobbly lines on the paneling to showcase that there's an annoying sound being heard. And as the Minotaur gets closer, the sounds, the wobbling of the lines gets more and more intense, and as we can see here, now they're super intense and really close together. And when the Minotaur goes and comforts the siren, the lines start to peter out and get less intense. It's so simple, but it works so well, you know? And finally, this is where I ended off. This was Absolute Zatanna's introduction. We have the return of Veronica Cale, and as you can see here, I don't have much to say with this panel, but as you can see at the top, like, you've got a little bit of white space, blank space at the very top to kind of form that arrow, and then another arrow with Veronica's eyes, again to showcase her cold, calculated nature, and she's stuck in this inverted triangle, and it's meant to point, like the triangle points a direction right to Zatanna, who's, I mean, not that we needed an indicator, but you know, it's cool, like it's a cool design language, and it points us right to Zatanna, and Zatanna looks crazy. Since I took a picture of this, Absolute Zatanna's design has been revealed, and she's fine as fuck, so bad. But I'm not gonna get horny on main, but you know, this is what her design looks like, and it's awesome. But anyways, that's all I had to say for this video. Hayden Sherman's a really cool artist. I love their work. I actually met them once, and I asked them, like, where do you get your kind of inspiration from? And unfortunately I don't remember their exact answer, but they said European comics utilize a lot of different shapes in their paneling, and so they get a lot of their inspiration from there, and I thought that was really cool. If I ever meet them again, I'm gonna have some more detailed questions ready, because I asked them that question when I had only read 2 issues, and it's been 14 issues now, and I have a lot more questions to ask them. So Hayden Sherman, if there's some off chance you're watching this video, love your work. Come back to Canada. I have more questions to ask you, and if you're ever willing to hop on a call with me and just, like, you know, shoot the shit for a bit, that would be cool too, just saying. But there's no chance that they watch this, but you know, I just wanted to be known. Biggest Hayden Sherman stan right here, wishing them the best, and I can't wait to see more of their work. Read Batman Dark Patterns. I'm probably, if the paneling in Dark Patterns is anything like the paneling in Absolute Wonder Woman, I'm probably gonna make a video about that too. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like down below. I had a hell of a fun time breaking down the design language and analyzing stuff like the shape structures and the guttering, and just how Hayden Sherman likes to have these big bombastic moments that are still supplemented with important small character moments as well. And I think that's important in big stories like this, because comic books often get lost in, you know, the craziness of what's going on, that they forget to focus on the actual like human elements, the storytelling. And so far I can say like none of the absolute runs have had that issue so far. But yeah, no, it's just, this has been a fantastic read. I'm probably gonna make an absolute Batman video as well, although it won't be in the same vein as this. It's a very different video, so keep an eye out for that. But until then, I will talk to you guys later. Read Absolute Wonder Woman, support your local comic book stores, and have a great time. Thank you guys for tuning in. Bye bye.